Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to grecochess, the YouTube channel of chess. In this video, we continue covering the games from the underwater Moonlight Tournament that was organized by one of our subscribers, Sanilor from Italy. 81 players started in that tournament. Now we're in the final round with 6 finalists, each playing against each other twice, alternating white and black. Until now, 4 games have been concluded. We've already covered 2 of them, and in this video, we covered the 3rd game that was completed. The first 2 games, you may remember that MMT from Indonesia started with 2 wins. But let's give a look at the 3rd game. And once again, we are only going to show part of the screen because we don't want to spoil the surprise. Don't want to show who has won and how the game continued in advance. That would happen if we saw the entire screen. Who are the opponents? With the white pieces is maximgovorukha. You may remember that he was he was from the Ukraine. You may remember he was the runner-up, the 2nd place in the grecochess tournament that I organized a few months ago. And with the black pieces is pigio74 from Italy. The position that you see is not the starting position because this is a thematic tournament, meaning players start from the position that you see here. The opening is pre-selected for them. And you're going to see here on this, on this left zone, or whatever you want to call it, this line, what does the computer think about this position? Currently, it thinks that players are equal 0.0. And if white is doing better, you'll see a number at the bottom left. If black is doing better, you'll see the number at the top left. The rating 1782 for Maxim Govorukha, 1281 for pigio74. So there is an enormous rating difference in favor of Maxim Govorukha, but if you've seen from previous videos, this really means very little. Many quote-unquote surprises have happened. Many players with lower ratings have defeated players with higher ratings. Not only in chess.com, but also, unfortunately, in games that I have played, I've lost from players with lower ratings than mine. And let's continue the game. After 6 moves, 0.0, and white, that is Maxim Govorukha, sends his bishop to g2. No surprise here, that's why you push your pawn to g3, to fianchetto, prepare your bishop to g2, so the bishop not exactly controls, but presses the entire long diagonal that goes from a8 to h1. And since white is in control, black tries to block it with pawn to d5. Again, a book move. That's what this little book means here. These moves have been extensively discussed and analyzed in opening theory. And Maxim Govorukha places his knight to e5. Another book move. You want the knight in the center, although one may be surprised. Why not continue developing? Because we see here quite a lot of pieces of white have not yet been developed. The two rooks are in the starting squares, the knight, same thing, the queen, same thing, the king. We have 5 out of 8 pieces of white have not yet been developed, so they may have priority, but nothing wrong with this move. Black sends the bishop to b7, basically tells white, I'm going to challenge your bishop. You place your bishop in this diagonal, I'm also going to place mine. Computer doesn't like it too much, thinks it's just a good move. Would rather have the pawn go to c6 to further close the diagonal. And game continues. Kingside castling for white. Why not? But computer would rather have the knight go to c3, but I don't think it matters too much. It's an excellent move, not the best, but an excellent. Pawn to c6. Now that black does his move, computer doesn't like it so much. Before it wanted it. Pawn to e3 for white. Again. Well, this liberates the diagonal of the queen from d1 to go to h5. Also gives more support to the pawn on d4, but computer would rather have the knight go to c3. Develop your pieces first. And the pawns cannot go backwards, so don't push them unless you have to. Knight to d7, best move for pigio74. We finish at 10 moves. What is the score? Almost even. 0.22, 0.2 advantage for Maxim Govorukha. This means almost nothing at this point. Pawn to f4 for Maxim Govorukha, get more space, but the e3 pawn becomes a backward pawn, a weak pawn. That is why computer would rather have the knight go back to d3. Pawn to c5 for pg74, striking the center, even though the computer would rather have the knight go to e4. Knight to c3, yes, finally, and computer loves it. Now Maxim Govorukha develops the knight. What remains undeveloped? The rook on a1 and the queen on d1. And pg74 takes a pawn on d4, forcing Maxim Govorukha to take back, yes, with the pawn, no other way, and give more protection to the e5 knight. Short castling for pg74. Both sides have the a-file rooks and the queens at their starting squares. All other pieces have been developed, kings have been castled. Bishop to e3 for Maxim Govorukha. Computer thinks it's inaccuracy. The comment of the artificial intelligence code says the following. The better move was to connect rooks. This allows the open to pin a pawn. What's happening is, in addition to everything else, the bishop on e3 is unprotected. So if the knight, you cannot go to g4 because of this knight here. But if knights are exchanged, then black can send the knight to g4, something like that, and attack the bishop on e3. Still, white is not going to lose the bishop, but will have to waste a move thinking where to place it. Rook to b8 for pg74. One good part is that the rook is not in this diagonal that is controlled by the bishop on g2. Computer would rather have the queen go to the c8 square, but not too much of a difference. Maxim Govorukha takes a d5 pawn, and pg74 takes it back with a pawn, although computer would prefer a knight. What's happening is that the pawn on d5 is isolated. There are no black pawns on either the c or the e file to potentially protect it. So the pawn must be protected by other pieces. We finish 15 moves. And Maxim Govorukha has a very small advantage, 0.14. You see that the knight on c3 attacks the pawn on d5, and it's only defended by the knight on f6 and cannot be defended by any pawn. Let's continue. Rook to c1 for Maxim Govorukha. The open c file you see here. Rooks love open files. They can control them completely if given a chance. But pg74 is going to challenge it, sends his own rook to c8. So two rooks are staring each other on the c file. Bishop to h3 for Maxim Govorukha. And bishop to a6 for pg74 and attacks the rook on f1. And of course, Maxim Govorukha is going to save the rook, send it to e1. It's also an open file. Yes, there are pieces, but no pawns on the e file. And now pg74 makes a move that the computer thinks a blunder. Knight goes to e4. You see the two question marks, and suddenly the advantage of Maxim Govorukha flies all the way from 0.24, that's almost nothing, to 2.99, that's important. Would like the bishop go to a3 and attack the rook. What can happen now? The pawn at d5 is completely unprotected. White can send the rook to d5 and crush the pawn there. Anything else I can do? Okay, there's a nice combination. I'm not going to reveal it now because we'll see it later on. White had a move even better than the knight taking on d5. At this point, it might be a little bit too early. Okay. We'll go back when this moment comes and we'll explain what I was meaning. Knight takes a knight, misses a chance to take the pawn on d5. Of course, the pawn takes back, but not a good move. Computer would rather have black exchange the rooks. And now, here is a chance. Here is the chance that White has been waiting for, and he's not going to waste the chance. White is ahead by 4.05. It's an enormous advantage, but only if White finds the correct idea. If you want to stop for a while, viewers, and see what White should play for the next move, move number 20, the best move, and why. And let me tell you in advance, Maxim Govorukha found a move and is going to play it. And the move is knight takes on d7. And some of you may be wondering what's so great about this move. Because black can take back the knight. Not so easy. If black takes a knight, white wins the queen. That is why white now won not just a pawn but an entire piece. And you may be wondering why do it even earlier. We'll see the combination before. Here we are. And knight to e4. Why didn't white take the knight? Let's try to see what would happen. Knight takes a knight. Rook takes, knight takes a knight here. And here you see that a piece for a piece. White cannot be a piece ahead. Because now also black is attacking white queen. That is why at that point, while I thought in the beginning white would have done that move, I saw it was not yet ready to be done. And where are we now? Knight takes on d7, and black realizes that their queen cannot take the white knight because then the bishop will take the black queen. So pigio74 is down by 3.89 as you see, and places the rook to e8. Computer would rather have exchange of rooks, but when you're down, it's ideally not to exchange material. What is the score until this point? We finished 20 moves, and Maxim Govorukha is leading by 4.44. That is quite important, but will Maxim Govorukha keep it until the end? You never know. Let's see. Knight goes back to e5 to be safe, doesn't want any nasty tactics and lose the knight, the extra knight. Now exchange rooks. Bishop goes to d6, attacks the knight. Bishop to f1, attacks the bishop. You want to exchange pieces when you racket the material. Exchange we did. Pawn to h5. pigio74 wants to see if they can have an attack from the king side. Queen to c4. An excellent move, not the best. But pigio74 wants to use the queen to control, among others, the open c file and perhaps this diagonal here. May not be the longest, it's the second longest diagonal of the chessboard. pigio74 will take the knight. F pawn takes back. And before F pawn takes back, we finish until now 25 moves. And Maxim Govorukha is ahead by 4.64. What he wants to do is exchange as many pieces as possible and go to the ending, but be careful to have pawns, because if you're ahead by only one light piece, a bishop or a knight, and there are no pawns, the game is a draw. You need to think of these things in advance. Before you go to the ending, you need to think, if my plan goes successfully, what is the emerging situation? Yes, and now Maxim Govorukha takes back the bishop. Queen to d7. Where can it go from here? But at least it's finally moved from its opening square. Rook goes to c1, so white strengthens the control of the open c file. Rook to fate. Pawn to d5. pigio74 has already a passed pawn. Now passed pawns. White has the passed d pawn, meaning there are no pawns in front or to its sides, and black has the passed pawn on e4. Both are blocked. The white pawn is blocked by the queen. The black here the passed pawns, the white pawn is blocked by the queen, and the black pawn by its bishop. The ideal piece to block a pawn in these cases is the knight, neither the queen or the bishop. But if you don't have the knight, there are no knights on the board, use as low value piece as possible to block the opponent's passed pawn. Pawn to h4 for pg74 hopes that if pawns are exchanged, queen can go to g4 eventually or near the white king, and who knows, perhaps they have a perpetual, perhaps have a double attack. Maybe have a check that if the queen could then land the check in g3, then it could have a double attack. Both the king on g1 and the bishop on e3 would be in danger, and pg74 would be able to get his piece back. Will that happen? Not very likely, but one should never hope trying. Pawn to e6 for Maxim Govorukha near the black king. Exchange of pawns, and Maxim Govorukha has another pawn in e6. If this pawn moves the check, and who knows, it could even be a discover check and win more material. pg74 places the queen on d3. We finished 30 moves, and the advantage of Maxim Govorukha is 6.25. What can Maxim Govorukha do? If he pushes the pawn, it is a discover check. He can also exchange the queen since he sacked the material, and the pawn on c1. He can go to d1, attack the pawn. Maybe the rook can go to c8, but then slowly the king can go to e3 and win the pawn. These are two among the many good choices. Of course, Maxim Govorukha can take back this pawn. Oh, Maxim Govorukha needs to be careful. The bishop is under attack. So maybe the ideal is to exchange queens, because if Maxim Govorukha does anything like takes his pawn, queen takes a bishop. Let's start again. Queen takes a bishop with a check. Materially, we're even. But let's see what Maxim Govorukha is going to do. Move number 31. Sends a pawn to e7 with a check. You see here that because a check, pg74 cannot just take the bishop. It's not legal move. Here's to address a check. More than one way to address it. And pg74 decided to exchange queens. The best moves is the computer, but after 31 moves, Maxim Govorukha is ahead by 6.25. And what is going to be the next move of Maxim Govorukha? Not so difficult to spot it. Pawn takes rook, becomes a queen. And you see the white circle in the red, so the white flag in the red circle, and pg74 resigns. Why? Because the black has only two legal moves, and that's send the king to h7 or take the queen. Of course, pg74 will take the queen, and then Maxim Govorukha is going to take the queen, and Maxim Govorukha is ahead by a rook and a bishop. Maybe minus a pawn, but the pawn will easily be grabbed. So at this point, Maxim Govorukha wins the game. And we are going to see now, what does the computer think about the game, the overall impression. We'll need to stop sharing for one moment, and we'll share again the other screen. And one moment to wait. Share. Oops. Let's share the screen once again. Screens. Where is the entire screen now? Yes, here is the entire screen that has the computer opinion of the game, you see here that the game was even until here for many moves, and then for one moment, Maxim Govorukha had the chance, missed it, but after that it was played smooth. Maxim Govorukha played as if he's rating with a 91% accuracy versus 79.9 for pigio74. And Maxim Govorukha played as if his rating was 2000, a little bit higher than his 1782, while pigio74 played as if his rating was 1000, less than his 1281. No brilliant moves, no great moves. Two book moves for Maxim Govorukha versus one for pigio74. Best. 13 versus 8, Maxim Govorukha. Excellent. 8 versus 6, pigio74. Good 4 versus 3 for pigio74. Ending the negatives. Not too many negatives. One inaccuracies for Maxim Govorukha, one miss each of them, and one blunder for pigio74. But that blunder was all that was needed to decide the game. And we finished with this game. There is one more game that has been completed. We'll cover at the next video. In the meantime, let's see what's happening with grecochess64, the tournament that I'm organizing. We are near the end of the first round. We want to find, no, we want to find the tournament director, yes. And we want to find the grecochess64. You see here that just 11 games remain until the end of the round. If you look at the old pairings, most groups have been completed. 12 out of 16. In 9 of them, we have single winners. In 3 of them, we have 2 tying for first place. And which groups remain? Group number 3, where there are at least 3 players that have chances to advance. Oh no, there are exactly 2 players that have chances to advance. It is Sisu64 from Canada versus Backroger 8013 from Brazil. Everything depends on the 2 games between them. In group number 9, 3 out of the 4 players have chances to advance. Mormulek from where? Most likely from Russia. King Dave 3 from the United States, and Subham Chintu Parak 80 from India. Group 10, it's between Leon 1956 from Israel and Maximo 4 from Kazakhstan. And group 13, it is between Squirty 7 from the United States and Sigurd from Norway. That's it for now. Thanks to all the viewers, subscribers, the likes and the comments. If you cannot yet view, I have published a few short videos of 3 minutes playing Puzzle Rush with 3-minute time control if you want to watch them and see how you can do in these puzzles. If you want to participate in the 1-year anniversary of a club, please send me a message. I'll be glad to have you be involved. This is Greco Chase. I'm your host, Harilas Aniziris. To all of you, goodbye.